Hello, dear viewer / listener. Welcome to this very first episode of Late Night Sets with your host, the Purple Sharpie. I'm joined today by Season 1 NXTUp contestant from Justin Wong's reality show, Shep. How are you doing today, Shep?
I'm good. I'm excited to be on a podcast.
You actually are very well known inside of the FGC at large, or I should say in a more niche area of the fighting game community, for actually defeating Justin Wong and not only minting the $20 bill that you received from him, but also showcasing that inside of your interview video. Let's go ahead and run a clip.
Okay. Okay, one more. Congrats.
So inside of that clip, we see you showcase the $20 bill, and my question is, did that challenge help prepare you in any way, shape, or form for this reality show?
Justin ran the challenge, but it was on a max stats, highest level CPU Zangief, quote unquote, impossible Zangief, where basically, for anyone who hasn't messed around in versus mode, it's possible to add additional buffs to one player or the other, even if that player is a CPU, to, I guess, balance supposedly if one player is really experienced and the other one's kind of casual. So it was the highest possible level of CPU, plus it's healing, it does triple damage, it has regenerating drive, I think it might have had faster generating super, all these kinds of ridiculous buffs that are what made it so quote-unquote impossible. It could one-touch or two-touch absolutely anybody, and SPD did like 80%, I think, and that was what I had to beat to win the $20, and that was really awesome. I think in some ways it did help prepare me for how it was going to feel to be on NXTUp, because that video just absolutely blew up. It's over 600,000 views on Justin's YouTube now. I haven't joined a single FGC Discord since, or played online since, most of the time, without somebody saying, "Didn't I see you in that YouTube video?" No fewer than 8 people when I attended Red Bull Kumite that I did not know said something and had seen the video and recognized me. And that kind of helped me get to grips with the visibility that was going to ensue from being on NXTUp. And I guess getting used to, although the response was overwhelmingly positive, the occasional just really dumb or unnecessarily negative comments that I can then make the decision to either kind of humorously clap back at or just choose to ignore. I'd already kind of made my peace with the fact that internet is gonna internet, and I think that made it a little bit easier to feel ready to be on what was functionally the same stage again, because it's Justin's channel.
My secondary question has to actually do with something that you mentioned, which is obviously the internet's going to internet, but you actually have a very, very strong online community presence, specifically inside of the Street Fighter 6 Marisa Discord, otherwise known as Marisa Cord, where you are actually one of the moderators. Can you talk to us about your experience inside of that Discord and the community that you found there?
Talk about Marisa Mafia. I love the Marisa Discord. I joined Marisa Discord right after I started going to locals for the first time in the tail end of August 2023, and I was like freshly Plat 1 and really didn't know anything. And I needed a lot of help. I asked a lot of questions. I wanted to practice with everybody. I had people in that Discord, I'm pretty sure, still explaining like number notation to me, that it's a 2MK, it's a crouching medium kick, it's a low forward. There's a lot to come to grips with, even just on the surface of the FGC. I just ended up being so chronically active in that Discord, between asking for help, offering help, tossing around theories, and just like geeking over fan art and stuff, that eventually they were like, "You want to be a mod?" And I've never modded anything before and was worried about it kind of becoming like less fun if I had a responsibility there. So I was like, "Are you sure? Like, how much work is this going to take?" And they were like, "You really don't have to do anything. It's occasionally if we get a spam bot, you ban them. And on the rare occasion that somebody's just being an unrepentant asshole, you can ban them." And let me tell you, that is not a responsibility. That is a joy. Nothing makes me greater joy than when someone comes into my space just to be like obnoxious and make people feel bad about themselves, or just be an overt bigot about whatever demographic of people, and I get to be like, today and hit the hammer button, and they can just exit stage left, and there's nothing they can do about it. Like, that makes me happy that I get to, in some small part, help make sure my community remains a welcoming and safe space as much as I can.
That's always fantastic, especially seeing a community Discord start to uplift their members, especially inside of the online fighting game community, and then to have a member of that community go on and be on like the grand stage for a virtual online fighting game event where you ultimately get a chance at $10,000 and free entry in addition to travel for 3 major events. That's no small feat, to say the least.
It put the pressure on, for sure. Everything with NXTUp was constantly like in the back of everybody's head, like $10,000, $10,000.
Out of respect to our viewers, we are not going to divulge any spoilers about Justin Wong's NXTUp episode 2, but we do highly encourage any and all listeners/viewers to go ahead and watch that episode yourself and come back. With that being said, inside of that episode, we actually see that you're most worried about Nate as a player because he is a Marisa player, and specifically, you're kind of concerned about the matchup in and of itself. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the Marisa matchups and how you specifically practice against them?
As for how I specifically practice against them, frankly, part of the problem is that I haven't specifically been labbing the mirror. I was able to kind of coast for a while off of just waiting for people to walk into the space of Gladius and hitting Gladius. And Marisa has a lot of ways of mounting offense. So as far as how I practice it, I need to sit in the lab, quite frankly, and just program the bot to throw out Gladius and get comfortable with punishing it. With punishing is something I've been trying to lab in general because it's something that I'm still less confident in than a lot of the other areas of my gameplay, and something that, frankly, is a skill that can only be honed through repetition, so I'm gonna have to sit in the lab and drill it. A training regimen aside, Marisa mirror matches are a kaiju battle. They are Godzilla versus Kong. It's just like whoever gets hit, there goes 50% of your health. They're over in like 3 seconds, unless you have 2 Marisas that are very aware of that and are basically just playing chicken. They're so violent and volatile, and that's part of what makes them nerve-wracking as a mirror, is that it's really 1 or 2 decisions can end the match on either side because Marisa does so much damage. And Nate plays an absolutely killer Marisa.
It's really interesting as well because there's another player inside of NXTUp who had similar words to say about your feeling with Nate. Specifically, Triumph stated that I have the best chance of beating her, and so he doesn't think you very much of a threat. You actually also had a very similar feeling on Triumph as well. Do you care to explain to any of our viewers or possibly the community at large how you feel about Triumph and why you feel as though you don't believe that he's any competition for you?
That I thought he wasn't any competition. I would say that in terms of thinking, if I have to fight one of these people, who would I be comparatively less nervous about? I definitely felt like if I were put in a position where I had to fight Triumph, it would be okay. And that's primarily because, on the one hand, everybody's practiced the Luke matchup because Lukes are everywhere, because Luke is a really good character, so there are less of those random knowledge checks, or I didn't know he could do that. And on the other hand, that I think playing modern controls is a pretty strong counter to modern controls, which was my main thought behind having said that in the episode. When you both know that you have instant supers on deck, that you have instant special moves on deck, it forces you to, I think, not rely on them quite as much. And even if you do rely on them, you also have to account for the other person having the same options. If you're gonna try to instant super reaction me, I can instant super right back if I'm not in the middle of an animation. Neither of us have as free an option to go for the dizzy wall stun in Burnout, because even in Burnout, we both have instant supers on deck. In Marisa's case, in addition to that, I have instant Gladius, I have instant armor stance. Marisa has a lot of options to defend in Burnout compared to a lot of the cast, and I think those options are arguably even stronger on modern controls. And that forces you to avoid steamrolling with specifically modern strategies, I think. Because if your whole strategy is just based around instant super and make it harder for you to instant super me, they kind of cancel each other out, and it forces you to play a more quote-unquote normal match, in my opinion. Inside
of both episode 1 and episode 2, you talk about your disability to dyspraxia and how it affects your ability to play Street Fighter 6. Specifically, you kind of talking about it having a permanent debuff to kind of your mental load, which is one of the reasons why you use modern controls. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how you feel Street Fighter 6 helps specifically in the accessibility forum with your disability?
I think Street Fighter 6 has done a ton for my ability to get into fighting games, as evidenced by the fact that I'm this invested and this involved in Street Fighter 6 at this point. I do think there are certain things that could have been done, quote unquote, better if the goal of Modern was entirely to make the whole game more accessible and not to just provide an alternate way to play. I think kind of in a catch-22, because on the one hand, they wanted Modern to make the game more accessible to get into and allow more people to play it. But on the other hand, they rightfully, I'm sure, knew that a lot of people who've been playing for a really long time, when the only option was classic controls, would be uncomfortable with the idea that these motion inputs that they've put a lot of time into mastering and integrating were no longer strictly necessary to play the game. So as someone who plays Modern and sees it as a really valuable accessibility option, I would have preferred that they allowed Modern inputs to allow you to access the full suite of your special moves. For those who don't know, particularly those who might only play Classic, Modern does have one-button special moves with a designated special button and a direction, akin to how you would do special moves in Super Smash Bros. But that special move plus direction will only give you one specific strength of the special move. So neutral special for Modern Marisa is always the light version of Gladius. Down special is always the medium version of Phalanx or Superman Punch. Back special is always going to give you the medium version of, I'm going to mispronounce this, Demacaris. I just call it Dema. And the alternate versions of that, if you want to access the other strengths of your special move, you still have to do the special input. And that leads to certain situations where if you are unable to do the motion input period, you do lose out on certain combo routes. Most notably in my case, I have a lot of trouble with the manual DP input. I've tried multiple versions of shortcuts on Leverless. I can get it to come out sometimes in training mode, less so when it's not raw and it's actually inside a combo, but not consistently by any means, even though I've labbed it and labbed it and labbed it. And Marisa's traditional corner safe jump is off of a juggle from either heavy or OD Dema. You drive rush into back heavy punch, and then you do the heavy version of the DP input for a heavy Superman punch. And it specifically has to be the heavy strength of the move to give you a safe jump. The special input will always give you the medium version of the move. And I have just had to structure my Marisa gameplay around not having access to that safe jump because I cannot input it consistently. Whereas you look at something like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, and they allow you to use their special move button in addition with also simultaneously hitting a light, medium, or heavy button to, without motion inputs, access all the different strengths of your special moves. And I don't think that would have hurt Street Fighter 6 in any way if that were also the case, especially because there's a designated light, medium, and heavy button for normals in general, as opposed to separate punches and kicks within the modern control scheme. That would have made a lot of combo routes more accessible to me either sooner or at all. Like, at this point, I pretty consistently use the quarter circle back because there are a lot of routes into manual heavy Dema that are Marisa's big girl damage that I really want to have access to. And I can mostly consistently get that to come out in the combo now, but it would have made my life a lot easier and allowed me to start integrating that into my gameplay a lot sooner if it didn't always require the motion input. I think if they kept the damage cut being at 20% scaling down to 80% of the normal damage for any strength of a special move done with simple inputs, that would have been fine. But I can also see how if they continue to give Modern access to more of the things in the full kit, it would have made people who were doing the manual input in the full kit even more uncomfortable and just further stoke the argument. So I don't really envy anyone at Capcom. I don't think it's an easily fixable situation. And anytime you talk about changing one thing, you have to change something else. Like, I have a lot of people tell me, oh, I don't mind modern controls, but I think instant supers are kind of broken because they allow you to react to things that shouldn't be reactable. And I can empathize with that. It doesn't feel good on the receiving end either when I play other modern players. Even though I certainly take advantage of it in clutch moments, it can be frustrating, and I can see how it would feel unfair as compared to needing time to input and to react with the motion input for a Super on Classic. But I think maybe Capcom would benefit from a little more clarity as to whether they're treating Modern as an easier way to play the game or a way for new people to play until, if they want to be serious about it, they switch to Classic, versus it being an accessibility option. Because I have had so many conversations on and offline, specifically where I'll say, well, Modern is an accessibility option, and they'll be like, that's neat for you, but that's not why Capcom did it. Capcom did it for new people, or Capcom did it so that people's little siblings could play, or their partners who don't play video games could play. And I then have to go digging for like interviews with Capcom where they say something akin to, we are hoping for this to be an accessibility option.
Do you feel like, especially inside of the fighting game realm, publishers and developers in general can do more to make games more accessible?
Greater tutorialization is always a good thing. I haven't touched Tekken 8 very much because I'm really committed to getting better at Street Fighter, and Tekken is a vast and complex rabbit hole in which I strictly play Kuma to hit people with a fish. But I know Tekken has a replay takeover mode where they will show you, here are different punishes you could have done in this situation. Now literally hop into your replay, do the punish, and see what would have happened. That kind of feature is an accessibility feature. That's like having a coach in your living room to walk you through things. It means less digging through cordoned off Discords and forums and Twitter. It means less asking someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows something, and it makes that information more readily available to anybody playing the game. Things like that, I think, are an accessibility option, just not maybe in the way we traditionally think about it. I think World Tour in and of itself can be seen as an accessibility option. Yeah, it's there to give people another way to play the game and expand the amount of content in it, and that's all well and good, but it's also a really detailed, comprehensive tutorial for all of the game's mechanics that doesn't say, okay, idiot, here's how to play a fighting game, and actually assumes you are competent and treats it as part of the game, as opposed to like, oh, you're a baby player. Welcome to the super dull tutorial where we go, press forward to walk forward. I think the more gamified tutorialization and integrated tutorialization there is, the more accessible games will be, because that's ultimately all part of accessibility. I just said accessibility like 37 times. It doesn't even sound like a word anymore.
You did. I was actually counting. I got a little tally here on my cue card. It goes up every single time you say the word accessibility. No, I'm joking. It's an important topic, and I'm so incredibly grateful that you brought it up and you spoke so incredibly eloquently on the topic. It's obviously an issue that is very near and dear to you personally, and I'm always very happy when members bring up these topics specifically so that we can go ahead and have a broader conversation, even possibly at a developer or publisher level, about accommodating all members of our community. On the topic of community and accessibility, I want to get into your controller of choice. You play on Leverless controller.
Can I go grab one so that I can kind of like
Please
have a
do. Yeah, go grab it. Go grab it right now. I'll take that question again, okay? While Shep is going and getting her controller, please feel free to sit through these next few bits of ads. We'll be right back.
Mission 6, Stronghold.
Did I bring a Yasuo player onto my podcast?
I'm sorry, and an Ari player, but Ari will be.
You didn't tell me any of this when I hired you to work on this podcast.
The application, Sharpie.
That's crazy.
You said, "Are you interested in playing 2XKO?" And I was like, "Yes, I want to commentate it."
We could have had Justin Wong here. We could have had Persia.
I feel like Justin would play
tricked.
Yasuo. Let's be honest here. Justin would have.
Justin's definitely going
Like
to be playing
1000%. That's gonna be a broken character day one.
Okay, welcome back, Shep. That controller looks amazing. Can we get a close-up of that, please? Beautiful.
I've been bringing the NXTUp controller to local since the show dropped because bragging rights, I'm gonna ride that wave of serotonin as far as it will possibly take me.
Absolutely, and you should. You definitely should. We take all them W's inside this FGC, especially the Justin Wong W's that we get, you know? We're getting close to time, Shep, and speaking to you has been an absolute joy. I do want to ask, just as a final question, you mentioned that you joined the New Jersey fighting game community in 2023, and you went to your very first local, and that opened up so many doors to you going to that offline event. Is there anyone or possible multiple people in particular that you like to say thank you to for getting you these opportunities and getting you this far?
Oh man, the list would go on forever. Every single person in our local scene, with like very few and far between exceptions, and by exceptions I mean like maybe one person that didn't like that I played modern controls, has been really, really welcoming and encouraging to me, and has just been so on my team and hype. On the Philly side of things, since I'm right across the bridge, we have some really incredible TOs. Kyle, aka Comeback, he's a Honda main who's been playing like forever. He's mad good, but he's also one of the TOs in Philly, and he runs the monthly Go For Broke tournament, which is one of the bigger tournaments in my area, and also just generally makes himself available to answer questions or watch over a replay with you or explain the Honda matchup to you. Great guy. We owe him so much when it comes to the Philly FGC. The Shadow Royalty guys in Philly also run really incredible tournaments and are linked up pretty heavily with the Philly Tekken community too, with Iron Fist Philly, which I've engaged with less but had only positive experiences with. Lamar, Asar, all of those guys in the Shadow Royalty tournaments are awesome. Every time one of the newer players like myself, or there's a Ken main called Advent, great guy. Every time one of us breaks our previous record at one of Shadow Royalty's events or makes it into top 8, Lamar just wants to bear hug you. Like, he's practically like declared himself everybody's dad. Like, you can see him there with like the imaginary foam finger, like Street Fighter. He sat in the lab with me months and months back when I was just like, every time JP command grabs me, I get hit and I don't know what to do. And showed me that the visual cue for a ghost versus the command grab is completely different if you watch JP's hands, as opposed to only looking at your character model or the fireball as it's coming. And he basically just made me sit on the other end of the screen while he randomly alternated between ghost and command grab until I successfully jumped the command grab, and he went, good. And now if I'm actually looking for command grab, I get hit by it a lot less often. Things like that are just the one-on-one interaction to help you improve at your game. We have some awesome TOs in New Jersey as well. My friend Sam Blue Dazer over at Sector X is probably the biggest driving force behind the X Impact bi-weeklies, which is one of my favorite locals. I live really close to it. It's a great venue. It's good people. Really, really fun. Awesome person. There's also Hops and Stocks, which just moved to a new venue. It's literally just a handful of people playing games in a brewery every other Monday and bringing all their own setups. And I love how cozy and welcoming it feels. Hops and Stocks was the first time I ever attended a local where I won matches. And it was one of those things where I just went from I can't take a game off anybody to something clicked, and I had like a crazy day where I beat like 3 people. And they were all so excited for me, and nobody had ego about it. Nobody was like, I shouldn't have lost to you or whatever. They were just like, you're getting better and we're so proud of you. And they continue to force me to get better because they're always getting better. Steph Tendo is one of the main TOs over there. I'm blanking on the other TOs off the top of my head. I would have to be looking at Discord, but all awesome people. Power Surge being my first local up in North Jersey before I found the South Jersey locals. I love those guys with my whole heart. A significant portion of the crowd behind me during the Impossible Zangief moment was people from Power Surge. which is largely run by Surge himself. We actually celebrated his birthday at Power Surge yesterday when I made it back out there. And everybody there is just great. They are absolutely mad good players, and they will trash talk the heck out of you. But once bracket is over, they want to help you. They will sit in lab with you. They will get into a custom room with you and run the long set and tell you what you're doing wrong and give you tips on the matchup or your neutral or what have you. My very first Power Surge, I went in on the back foot. I was fully prepared to have to assert my right to be there and seriousness about gaming as a woman, and I never had to do that. Nobody creeped on me, nobody made me uncomfortable, nobody condescended to me, and it really set the tone for what I had a right to expect in the FGC and what I've thankfully continued to experience. And those people, again, people that are more interested in helping you improve than maintaining their ego. One of the best players we have out there is another Marisa main named KDZ. He actually won Evo for Injustice 1 with Superman, which is what he's largely known for. And he helped me with my Marisa at my very first local when I basically only did auto combos. And he sat with me and went, "You need to anti-air more." And I was like, "With what?" And he showed me that like Gladius could be an anti-air. I had no idea. And he sat in the lab with me and just jumped at me and walked me through this. You start holding Gladius here, you release it when the armor ticks. If they don't tick the armor, you do this. And it was bare bones basic stuff, but he didn't make me feel incompetent or unintelligent for not knowing it yet. And that was late August last year. I never got the chance to play him again. We had played like a first to two just for him to get an idea of where I needed help, which obviously was everywhere at the time. And I've been grinding since, and I finally got to play him again last night at Power Surge, and he beat me 2-1, but I took a game and it was close. And he was wild excited for me and supportive of me, as opposed to being all like, "I shouldn't have lost to you, I have more experience than you, I'm better than you," whatever. He is objectively better than me, I maintain that. He's a really good player. But he was more interested in letting me have that moment and giving me advice to hopefully actually take the set the next time than he was interested in lording his credentials over me. And I think that's really just emblematic of what my overall experience in the Jersey and Philly FGC has been, is everybody wants everybody to get stronger. Everybody shares tech, everybody will play a game with anybody, there's no ego about it. And if you're gonna get really salty that you lost, which happens to the best of us by and large, people go take a walk, they cool off, they come back, everybody's still friends. And it's awesome to have the kind of community where people will trash talk. People do absolutely want to beat you senseless without letting you take a round in the bracket. But outside of that, in the community at large, everybody helps everybody, everybody supports everybody. They love to have new people. They love to see those new people who are hungry to learn and help them learn. And I'm just really, really happy to be here. The list of people could go on and on. I can't believe how long the answer already is. I love our local scene. I love them so much.
Well, Shep, it's been an absolute pleasure. Oh my gosh, is that a cat? Is that a kitty cat? Do you have kitty cats, Shep?
I have 3 of them.
You have 3 kitty cats, and you weren't gonna, we went this entire interview and you didn't say a single thing about your kitty cats?
Well, up until this moment, they were thankfully sleeping. They want attention all the time.
Yeah, I understand. I have my own cat, and she's very much so the same way. What are the names of your fur babies?
We have a senior cat. He's 12 years old. He's a tuxedo, and his name is Ribbit because his meow kind of sounds like a strangled frog and always has, and the shelter did not know why, so they named it Ribbit, and it stuck. It's adorable, but it's kind of alarming when he wants attention, and you just hear this like creaky door noise in the dark, like, "Love me, mother." And then we have 2 kittens that are almost a year old now, named Joel and Ellie, and yes, it's because of The Last of Us.
Aw, that's so incredibly sweet. I'm so happy that you opened up your heart and your home to 2 little babies, or 3 little babies that needed it. You love to see it.
That was Ellie popping up on the screen just now, because of course she's the one who likes to walk directly in front of the camera, but she does not like to be held. So it's like, look at me, don't!
All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of Late Night Sets with your host, The Purple Sharpie. I'd like to thank you, Shep, for taking time out of your schedule to be here.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
And viewer, make sure that you support us by not only following our main podcast at FGC Cast, but also following and rating us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. As always, gamers, we will see you offline.